Yeah, and that to me is, living well. What you're asking is how do we really show up, have the courage and vulnerability to really show up as we are without apology and to say yes to the things that are ours to say yes to that really bring us alive, that allow our unique life energy to express in the ways that we're here to express.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Deborah Zucker. Deb is a compassionate and experienced naturopathic physician, mental health counselor, health coach, and award-winning author of The Vitality Map. She supports individuals through life's major transitions with offerings like transformative women's circles, virtual coaching, retreats, and her signature program, Vital You. Her approach helps clients design their own healing journeys with freedom, confidence, and ease. Having personally navigated a health crisis in her 20s, built a successful business, authored a book, and became a mother at 45, Deborah brings deep insight into the courage and resilience needed to live authentically. Her offerings invite individuals to chart their own paths to embodied well being and vitality. Hi, Deb, how are you?
Good, Broderick. Thanks for having me here.
I'm very happy to have you here. Very grateful to have you here. Audience, Deb and I are longtime friends. We went to school together some 20 years ago, and we haven't talked much since then, but we're still friends. I still remember Deb and our deep conversations about life. And she knew me when I was really crazy. We're not going to talk about all that. Um, Not crazy necessarily in a bad way, but just super intense. But I'm happy to have you here. Reached out to Deb. I just feel like there's so much wisdom in you, even back then, and you had so much wisdom. You're very thoughtful. And it's just great to have you here, my sister. It's good to just see you again. And we connected a little bit before we hit record here, and it's just good to catch up for that little brief moment. And then we get to further that catch up through this conversation with the world witnessing it, continuing those amazing conversations that we used to have without my craziness. But yeah, I'm very grateful that you're open to coming here and sharing your thoughts, wisdoms, your knowledge. I'm excited to see what has evolved over the years in your thinking. So I know I just read the bio, which is like I say this all the time, but reading that damn bio is something else. I'm always getting like I can't read. But yeah, I just read that. But I would love for you to just share with the audience something about yourself, who you are, in a way that's just not um, as well scripted as the well, it might be better than the bio.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Broderick. It's really good to be reconnecting and I'm excited about this unfolding conversation today and where it will take us. I I always struggle with what to say about myself. I live in Bellingham, Washington now, and I'm really inspired and enlivened by the natural world, and um, that's one of my go-tos to support my well-being on a daily basis. And I'm a mama to a now 5-year-old girl, Amy, and that is, yes, I was saying to you earlier, just such a deep calling and teacher. You know, she is such a teacher. Being a mama is such a teacher for me in my life of really continuing to tune into what really matters and what this life is really about and yeah, constantly bringing balance and perspective to my days.
Mm. Well, this is the perfect conversation then.
Yeah.
This is the perfect conversation to explore that theme. What is life really all about? And having a kid, I would suppose I don't have kids, but I would suppose that that would really, well, for most people, you would think at least, that would definitely spark and reflection on meaning and significance in life. So to start this conversation off, well, it has already started, but to start this one aspect of the conversation off, exploring meaning and significance is, what does living well mean to you? What is a good life? What makes life worth living? I use those questions interchangeably there just to kind of spark this exploration to that overall theme. So
Mm-hmm.
so have at it.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes up just front and center is connection, you know, loving connections with other people. Like just when I think about what matters most, and yeah, just having that sense of being a part of the human family, you know, really participating and showing up in my own uniqueness and who I'm here to be, that sense of alignment with feeling, yeah, just that life expression that's authentic, true, and and here and in connection with others. You know, just yeah, just the, you know, when I used to have this practice. It's not so much a daily part of my life anymore, but it's like, if I died today, would I feel complete? And
Mm.
just really, you know, a practice of bringing the potency of life and mortality right there every single day, you know, not taking life for granted. And inevitably, you know, it's the other people in my life that show up front and center with that kind of inquiry. You know, who is it that, yeah, is I'm called to reach out to say something to complete something with? And yeah, and that to me is, you know, living well. You know, what you're asking is how do we really show up, have the courage and vulnerability to really show up as we are without apology, and to say yes to the things that are ours to say yes to, that really bring us alive, that, yeah, that allow our unique life energy to express in the ways that we're here to express.
Mm. Love it. Now we got to unpack all that. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. That was like an outline.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Um, I just love these conversations. I love it because the stuff that comes out of it is so inspiring. Yeah, connection, and that sense of connection, not just with others, but with yourself, being in
Yes.
alignment with yourself, and the value of having both of those. You know, that deep connection with oneself, and as well as that loving connection with others. So let's unpack this a little bit. Can you say a little more about how, where you want to start? You want to start with connection with self or connection with others, and the connection between those two,
Right.
uh,
It's like they're interwoven. So
right?
yeah. I mean, I'll start with connection with self. Um, when I think of what I was speaking to, of just that sense of alignment, you know, with our own yes, with the life energy expressing through us, you know, I think of you know, like a seed, and how a seed has in it, you know, all that life potential. And you know, we plant it in the ground and water it and get sun, and then it comes forth and grows. And we don't know what that, what's going to look like or how it's going to grow and evolve over time. But all we do is, we support its nourishment and that it gets what it needs. And yeah, I just think of the mystery of that for each of us, right? It's like we all start out that way, just this like, this tiny little bit of life essence with all this potential. And what it is to, for me, just, to keep surrendering. Like, I don't know how I'm going to continue to evolve. I don't know, who I'm here to be or what, what's going to happen in the next week, let alone the next 5 or 10 years or rest of my life. So it's just like to just keep tuning in to nourish and support myself in the ways that I'm feeling called, listening to the feedback that's there, that's telling me, where my life energy wants to go and where it might want to get pulled back or pruned, to really allow my own life expression to continue to unfold and support that unfolding in all the ways that I can. And that to me, just yeah, is like a deep connection and honoring of this life that I'm here to steward and to really hold that front and center that that I'm not here to control it. I'm here to steward it. I'm here to support the blossoming, the blooming, that's wanting to naturally happen and the uniqueness of that. And yeah, no one else but me is here to do that for this particular body being. And yeah, just to be connected with life in that intimate, personal way, and then from there it gets to what you're speaking to, that then it's like connected to the web of life. Like, my life matters. Like, I'm not just isolated over here. Like, I'm part of the greater web of life, and that interconnection with both the people that I'm intimate with and who are part of my daily life, and the ripples of how that web of life extends to all the other creatures and all the other humans throughout the world. And to live in that trust that the fuller my life expression is, the more it reverberates out into the world, and to do so with intention, of what is it that I'm reverberating out in the world, and that through that web of life.
Mm, beautiful. Oh, love it. Further unpacking. I'm feeling quite goofy today. I like it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. I
Right.
love it. So now let's look a little, take a little closer look at that. What is required of us to do what you're doing is being open, being
Mm.
curious about ourselves, being receptive to what's available, what's there within ourselves, and listening, like you're saying, listening, tuning in to ourselves. How might we do that? How might we
Mm.
listen and tune in to ourselves? What are your ideas, your thoughts about that?
Mhm.
Because what you're saying is that is required of us. What can we do to facilitate that process?
Yeah. Well, it requires, kind of learning the language of the feedback that's there for us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Our life energy, our body beings are giving us feedback all the time of what's aligned and what's not so aligned. But most of us, that wasn't modeled for us growing up
Mm-hmm.
to be taught how to do that. And that's been, a big part of my own healing journey, that led me to Bastyr naturopathic medicine, and has continued to be a part of my healing over the years, is learning that discernment and being able to listen. And yeah, so it's like a foreign language that we can learn and yeah, attune to. And some of it's trial and error, some of it's, getting some support from people who might be a little further along that journey of self-awareness, to yeah, to learn how to heed that true inner yes. And again, I was saying before, the courage and vulnerability, because sometimes we might, part of us might really know the messages that are there, but it's might feel counter to what other people expect of us, or what society is mirroring to us that we're supposed to be or do. And so yeah, to find that courage and that vulnerability to really stand with that deeper truth or that deeper calling or that knowing, or to step away, from yeah, something that's secure and known, or whether it's a relationship, a job, a home, just sometimes like we have those bigger nudges, and sometimes it's the little everyday nudges that are really asking us to tune in to what would support our vitality and that clarity of being.
Mm, I'm loving it. This is so good already. First 15 minutes, I'm digging it. So, yeah, learning the language and it's a skill set, and learning how to listen and what to listen for and
Mhm.
how to receive what one is listening to. And we have to get some support in some way. Sometimes we're, like you said, most of us didn't grow up aware or sensitive to that type of self reflection, and learning how to extract feedback from our inner exploration, our inner experience. It requires some type of support. It's an educational process. Um, I think that this podcast offers something like that. Not necessarily for this particular thing. It can in certain conversations, of course, but it's this offering of how to think about your life, how to look at your life experience, and ask yourself questions that's going to bring to life some knowledge, some insight, some clarity about our experience through asking questions. How do we know those types of questions? What questions to ask? We might read a book. We might go on. We might listen to someone who is a therapist, counselor, friend, meditation teacher, or spiritual counselor. I don't know. There are various things that we can do to try to seek out a set of a language for exploring ourselves. I think that that language is quite broad. There are different perspectives, and each perspective offer a different take on how to explore oneself.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, can you say something about that? Because you're shaking your head. I know I can keep talk about it, but I would love for you to unpack what your thoughts are about that, what I'm saying about this,
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
particular part.
yeah, I mean there's lots of different ways to receive the feedback. Lots of different ways that the language speaks to us. And some of us, are innately more attuned to some than others, or, again, have had that modeled for us, so it might feel easier. Yeah, but, everything from symptoms in the body, a headache or a discomfort in your gut, or, lots of things that we might diagnose, including things like depression, anxiety, burnout. Um, the symptoms, the feedback comes in lots of different ways, but we might have learned to interpret it, in a way that isn't actually supportive for us guiding ourselves. So it might, most of us grew up in a culture where it's like you get a headache, you take a painkiller, and it's yeah, and these days it's like the diagnoses for depression and anxiety, it's like an epidemic. And so, you know, they're medicated and treated as an illness. And there's, not to diminish the truth of needing to get support in those ways at times, but there's also a lot of times those symptoms are our souls saying, hey, things are really out of alignment here. And this was a deep part of my own healing, in my early 20s. Chronic fatigue, depression, it led me on this calling to support others as I began learning for myself in these ways. But one of the biggest keys that I sort of distilled out for myself that was huge in my own healing, that really wasn't being talked about, was that deeper alignment with my yes, and just like when I had the courage to do that at various times in my life, and I've had to learn that lesson over and over and over again, you know, it's like my energy came back, my vitality came back, the joy came back. Like there's just, yeah, there's ways that we've learned, you know, and this is all unconscious and you know, shadow parts of ourselves that we've inherited through the generations and through this culture, broader cultures that we live in. But it's like they're running the show, these parts of ourselves. And so it's not to take this on as like something being wrong with me or, you know, feeding the shame and the self-judgments, but more like, oh, this is kind of what I've inherited, this is what I know to do. And now, you know, that I'm beginning to sort of wake up to there being some other ways to listen to this language, to discern what the feedback is. We can start opening and experimenting and seeing like what happens if I hear that message in a different way and respond in this way instead, as an experiment, and see what happens and then get that feedback. And then it just starts reinforcing that ability to kind of learn the language, listen in a different way, disentangle from all those messages we've received.
Mm, love it. To
Mm.
be playful with the process,
Yes.
to
Yes.
explore these different things. Oh, I'm having a headache, and the other night I had a headache, and I rarely have headaches. No, I'm not going to take any. You know me. I'm still not going to take any ibuprofen, anything like that for a headache. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, now why do I have this headache? Now I have this. I've been through this, spending most of my life learning various language systems for approaching self explorations, self exploration. And so I've started asking myself this question. And already know. I'm like, I know why you have this headache. You haven't slept enough. You're thinking about this. This is bothering you. You're doing something that you're not quite. You feel like it's somewhat off alignment, but you feel like it's a part of the process of being in alignment. All of these different things that I can ask of myself, and there are parts of it I still don't know. That's saying like that's why this headache is definitely associated with all of that, because all of that is going to influence how much water I'm drinking. It's going to influence my dietary choices. Now I'm pretty good on my diet, but just in general, that's going to influence everything. And I think what you're saying is listening to ourselves and learning how to listen, not only to just because that's a process in and of itself, learning how to listen,
Mhm.
how to be self-aware. Self-awareness is a skill set that can develop. You
Mhm.
have to work it. You have to exercise it, just like anything, any skill to get better at it. And then learning how to like, how do I see this? I have this awareness, and what question do I ask of myself? And that requires some kind of language. And okay, well, what kind of language? I might learn from something from my psychotherapist. I might learn something from my doctor. I might learn from a specialist doctor. I mean, my general care physician, or not. Maybe it's not necessarily you're going to learn necessarily the best thing, but you're going to learn something about how to look at yourself. Like you're saying, I have a headache, or oh, let's say something psycho emotional. I am feeling depressed. Somebody might suggest that, oh, if you're feeling suppressed or depressed, then here's something you can do to stop it. And you don't need to look at it. Just stop it. I don't care if that means take a drug, or I don't care if that means just try to bypass it with cognitive behavioral therapy or therapeutic techniques alone. I think that's definitely valuable to have cognitive behavioral uh, techniques, something to help you just change the pattern of thinking, of course. But to do that alone and not have a language for understanding what is bringing it about in the first place. Not to say you're going to know everything about it, because, like you said earlier, there are so many influences in our operating system, not in our upbringing, all of our experience, all of our personal experiences, the experiences of our caretakers, the experiences of the culture that I'm involved in is informing my my day-to-day choices and my psychological um, my psycho emotional too. I would say emotional too. Patterns that are arising from me.
Mhm.
Um, all of those different pieces, I'm not going to know it all. But what I can do is take different perspectives and take a look at it. Okay, I want to get rid of this depression. I don't want it. I hear that. Okay, well, how do I get rid of it? But why is it here in the first place? Is there something that I can learn from it? Let me go ask somebody who says that you can learn something from depressive states. And how is it manifesting in my body? Oh, I'm like, I have, let's just use a typical thing that one sees is um, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. It's usually related to some kind of psycho emotional state as well, stress, depression, etc. Oh, I have this physical manifestation of this. I'm trying to be careful with my words here. I
Mhm.
have this physical manifestation of this experience that is happening to me. There's a physical, there's psycho emotional, there's even spiritual. What's happening inside of me? Am I aligned? Is this a message to saying that I'm not aligned with something? So asking ourselves all of these different questions and learning how to ask ourselves all these different questions and being open to exploring ourselves from various perspectives, I think is super valuable. Now, you can't do everything, of course not, but I think if we can incorporate as many perspectives so that we're open to gaining insight, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that how do we not get caught up in a diagnosis and also getting caught up in um, one way of looking at my experience? I think we do ourselves a disservice when we do that. Does that make sense? I
Yes.
was trying to be super careful with my language here.
Mhm.
Um, that's why I'm hesitant to say any of it, to be honest,
Mhm.
because I know enough to know that how you language something like this, how you speak about this, can be misinterpreted and taken the wrong way.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So, any of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of bring it back to some of the essential points, that both of us are touching into is around like really opening and curiosity to
Yes.
become more self-intimate, to recognize, that no one else but us is here 24/7 getting all this feedback. So really like, when we seek out support and we go to different professionals or others for guidance along our path, like recognizing that they don't have that intimate interior experience, lived experience. No one else but us does. So the more that we can be curious and open and kind of embrace that beginner's mind of like, this is where I'm at in this moment. Maybe I feel like I have no idea what any of this feedback is that is happening, but just to open from wherever we're at and begin to learn and begin to explore. And like you were saying, be playful, experiment, like see what you can learn about yourself through some trial and error too. And yeah, and just um, taking away kind of, I think this is sort of skipping a little bit to a different topic, but just taking away what can be so unhealthy in our journeys with self-care and guiding ourselves in our lives, where it can get so serious and it can feel like we're trying to live up, there's this rule book and we're trying to like all the time live up to these expectations or things we're supposed to do or not supposed to do. And that orientation, makes self-care feel like a chore, a burden, and like we're constantly trying to live up to something. And so I also just want to share, like, let's let go of the rule book. Let's like really open into this recognition, that we are constantly evolving. The world is constantly evolving. Everything's changing. Like nothing's predictable. So let's like orient towards caring for ourselves and guiding ourselves in our lives from the same place, where like we're flexible, adaptable, we're learning as we go, we're curious and experimental and we, yeah, so try things out for a bit, see what happens, what we learn, and we adjust as we go. And to take that pressure away and all of that allows us to actually turn towards ourselves. This gets back to the very beginning of our conversation, but like turn towards ourselves with kindness and love and true care. Like that's the essence of being connected to ourselves, that authentic connection of stewarding our lives. Like, can we really hold ourselves with that orientation and be open to, yeah, just the ever unfoldingness of our lives?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, and yes, I love how you put those words to that. That's it. Throw away the rule book. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at about taking all these different perspectives. Don't get caught up into what somebody says is happening to you. Like you said, I've spent all my days with myself. No one knows my experience like I do. And I mean, that's what I was trying to get at by saying, hey, look at all these different ways. Because if some one person says something, or this is what's happening to you and this is what you need to do, and it's like, no, you have to be open and receptive to your own experience and being creative and experimenting and the value in looking at these different ways of looking at yourself is going to help you have a better understanding of yourself such that you won't get fall into the trap of fulfilling somebody else's desire for you.
Mhm.
And that could be a doctor, it could be a counselor, it could be a therapist, or whoever, a family member, or a best friend. Being able to hold these different ways of looking at oneself, and that requires a significant amount of curiosity and a willingness to experiment, a willingness to play.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, that's it. And because how else will we uh, get to get to truly know ourselves and know that we're aligned or not? And you're right. We have to do that with compassion. We have to do that with tenderness and a little kindness towards ourselves. I think I found it's hard to do that when you're being fundamentalistic. Now you might have a thing that you stick with, and that's great. You're choosing to do that. But when you're being fundamentalistic about your experience based on what someone told you, it's gonna be hard to have compassion on yourself or
Mhm.
kindness, because you're gonna be continuously beating up yourself for not doing what you supposed to be doing based on this system, or the experience that you're supposed to be having based on that other system, or that system, or that perspective. And it's just like, no, no, we can't allow ourselves to get trapped by anything, but to be truly open and receptive, because we are on an we're evolving continuously. We're developing, we're evolving. And I feel like that makes life beautiful. It doesn't always feel good, for
Right.
sure. But it can make life quite good, quite wonderful. It makes it worth living
Yes.
when we are able to do as you're suggesting. And that requires being, I know we said this, I don't know how many times, but it's that important being open and curious about ourselves and holding ourselves with a little tenderness and kindness, because that the process is brutal. Like you said something earlier, sometimes we have a sense of what is ailing us, but we don't want to necessarily look at it because we are trying to fulfill all of these different ideas that have been imposed on us through culture, through our conditioning. But we and I feel and we live in a society where we have to fit within the society standards so that we can of what it suggests a good life is. And so it's going to be hard to look at a part of ourselves like, I know I probably could, I feel like this is not in alignment with me, but in order for me to fit well within my culture, I'm going to keep doing this other thing. And so I'm going to repress this part of myself that I have a sense that's a little bit more aligned, or I'm feeling that I'm not quite aligned, but it's really hard for me to go against the grain.
Mhm.
Um, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, lots of thoughts about that. One is when we hit those points, when either we have a sense of the feedback, but it just feels too scary and overwhelming, or yeah, all of the different reasons why we can't show up, or if there's feedback happening, but we're not sure what it's saying to us, but it feels
Mm,
significant. Like either one of those scenarios, I think the biggest thing that we can do, the most helpful thing we can do for ourselves is to lean into support, you know, and just, to not be in it alone. We are relational creatures and we really need each other. And just we can't see what we can't see, like some of these things that have us tied up and tangled, it's like they're in the shadows. They're part of our unconscious, and it's like other people can help us to begin to see what we can't see through their reflections, through their questions, through their just being with us as we process and explore. And and I, with that support, I just really want to say this is another realm of trusting yourself to find those who you feel like are really holding this deeper journey with you, like your own authentic truth, and who you feel safe with to be vulnerable and real and uncover these messy parts. Like, so that is absolutely essential. If you're leaning into support with someone who you don't feel that with, then kind of the opposite can happen. It can kind of reinforce some of yeah, those pain points in the shadows, and the patterns that, yeah, maybe you're ready to evolve and grow and heal through. So try out other people. Like, don't hesitate to try out different people, different kinds of modalities, practitioners, and also peer support. So the loved ones in your lives, it doesn't always have to be professionals. Like use
mm-hmm.
discernment. See if you can create some mutual support where you're both holding each other in these and offering reflections. And yeah, so just really, and I'm a huge fan of coming together in community. That's part of my calling because it's been so incredibly foundational in my own healing to be in community, not just one other person, but just to be with others in a shared path. Because I just find there's something alchemical about it. I think it's really primal. Like, this is where we've come from, and we've gotten away from it in this modern day reality, so many of us have. And yeah, we help lift each other. We help each other have the courage to be in our authentic truth, to find our way, to heal, to not feel so isolated and alone, which is another part of what I think is so calling out for healing these days, is just, yeah, just that sense of being in it by ourselves. Even if we have other people around us, like so many of us just hold that deeper healing journey, close in, and might feel shame or embarrassment around sharing it because, again, it's not part of the norm of the culture we
Mm-hmm.
live within. So to find those spaces where it is the norm, where it is safe, where we can feel seen and held, and really be in that intentional healing together.
Mm,
Yeah.
love it. This is a beautiful way of seeing how I love how this conversation is unfold, because you can see how, as an individual, quote unquote individual, we are a collection of others. We're a collection of those in the past, in our shadow, in our subconscious mind, unconscious mind, these parts of our programming that we have no excuse me, we have this this our program and our narrative, our story, that we had no direct involvement with shaping.
Mhm.
All of those people before us, the society that we live in, all of the people that we're living in with now, are shaping and informing our idea of ourselves, and
Mhm.
all of the patterns within ourselves that may be beneficial, that may be harmful, or whatever those patterns are. But we are in ourselves a collection of selves,
Mm.
past and present.
Yes.
And what you're saying is, okay, in order for us to unpack that, it is of value to um, to seek out support from others in coming to realize an aspect of ourselves, to get to know ourselves, because ourselves are not just, for instance, Broderick is not just Broderick's creation. It's just not. Um, it's a creation from my ancestors. It's a creation from the history of the world, the
Mm.
history of the human experience, not just the human experience. That's who I am. That's who I represent. Even the narrative that I hold. Now, I might not have of course, I don't know all of the different things that are shaping my narrative. But if I want to have a better understanding of it, what if I go out and seek others and trying to understand myself, understand my process?
Mm.
And also recognizing that not just trying to seek out others for help, but also just seeking out others as a um, way to connect with another aspect of myself.
Mm.
Not only am I, so when I seek support from, say, a friend or even a therapist for that matter, I am actually in conversation or dialogue with that person. I am learning something about myself. I'm
Mm.
going to naturally be reflective in that conversation or in that interaction. So I'm going to gain some insight through them.
Mhm.
And then I start to see that, oh, there's so much value in community. There's
Mm.
so much value in connecting with others. We're fluid creatures, really. And if we recognize that we're fluid creatures, that I am not just me within my skin,
Mm.
that I extend beyond that through my relationships, not
Mhm.
just with humans, but we can stick with humans for now. But I am because of my relationships with my past, even if I don't recall any of it. But all of those ancestors, all those human beings prior to me, all these other human beings that are making choices that are influencing me. Um, and I recognize all of that, and I'm like, okay, this idea of being connected to others is natural,
Mhm.
and wanting to connect, the longing to connect with others is a natural impulse because it is the nature of who we really truly are.
Yes.
We extend beyond that. And if we are open to evolving ourselves, our even just our narrative self, if we're open to evolving that, we'll see that we are beyond anything that we can ever conceive of. And when we are in connection with others, in community with others, we get to see an aspect of ourselves that can be quite beautiful. Now, like you say, we got to be careful. We got to be mindful of who we choose to connect with. There are people who are just vampires, vultures. There's all kinds of stuff out there, and that's just the reality of it. Uh, so you have to be mindful and careful of who you choose. And you're going to make mistakes. That's just life. You're going to, connect with people, and you realize, oh, that's probably not the best person to be with or be around. Um, but it's important to do that, to have that exploration. 'Cause even when you come into contact with someone that let's say, no, no, antisocial person that you come into contact with, and you realize that, like, this person is mm, not interested in my well-being.
Mm.
Even that interaction is a way of learning something about yourself.
Mhm. Yes.
Learning that potential, I have that potential in me, is one of them, that this way this person is behaving. Or I might also learn that, wow, I can't allow myself to be treated this way. I
Mhm.
have more value. Okay, thank you for helping me learn that. Thank you for helping me learn that I value myself more. Also, thank you for helping me learn that I have the potential to behave like you, and I don't want to do that because I know what it feels like in my own being.
Mhm.
So I guess in this roundabout way of trying to say, this is all spontaneous in the moment, of trying to say that it's only natural for me. I feel this is my perspective. It's only natural that we have an inclination to connect with others. And the only time we feel like we don't have that inclination, we've been so traumatized that it's really hard to do that. But that natural inclination to connect with others makes complete sense because we are extended in others. That's just one way of looking at it.
Mhm. Yes, to all of that. Yeah. Part of that web of life and just
Yeah.
really, yeah, feeling just, yeah, just again, that primal, innate reality of our interconnectedness.
We are the web itself, right?
Mm.
If we can let go of my current narrative of Broderick, I know people hear me say this all the time. Hopefully it sticks. If I can let go of Broderick just for a moment, at least all of the fixation on this idea of Broderick, and allow myself to connect with the web, then you realize that you are the web itself.
Mm.
It's okay to bounce back into Broderick because, like you and I having this conversation, right? Deb
Mhm.
and Broderick having a conversation. We're in our own little spaces. You have something I have no idea about. I have something you don't have any idea about yet. But when I just let go of myself and listen, and like in this conversation, I'm just so interested and curious and reflecting off of what you're saying. And we're having this dance when I realize that, oh, I'm not just my own fixated ideas.
Mhm.
I am the ideas that you're sharing. I am, or at least I am, no, I would say I am the ideas, but I hold those ideas too, even if I don't know them, even if I'm unaware of them. Uh, those ideas are informing, as you're sharing in this conversation, they're informing an aspect of myself, my greater self, a viewpoint, a perspective that that is slightly different than mine, but I get to see it through our conversation, our interaction, and it can help me evolve. It helped me expand my way of seeing. And for me personally, well, I'll ask you. I'll ask you. What is the benefit of that? What is the benefit if you buy what I just said? What is the benefit of that?
Mhm. I mean, what it evokes in me is some of what I was speaking to before around, just honoring our unique life, just like, we're all coming from this universal life, energy. There's lots of different language and words and ways of holding that. Um, but then we come into these different forms and we evolve and grow in these different forms with these, unique personalities and names and callings and ways of being and all of that and perspectives that comes with that. And it just brings sort of that combination for me of that expansiveness and remembrance of where I and we have come from and who we really are, and a deep honoring of like, man, I am like alive and in this body, and yeah, go around being called Deborah and just like, yeah, get to experience life, through this form. And it just, it evokes, I mean, you probably just saw it in my being, it evokes like this joy and this, again, the curiosity and this openness, like, wow, I get to experience all that life has, whatever this particular life experiences. And for me, like when I find myself in times of challenge, when life brings me to my knees, when it just
Mhm.
like feels really hard, or when I'm, engaging in really challenging things that are unfolding in our world, it brings, um, yeah, it evokes like a feeling of resilience, of just like, and this too, like, this is all part of what I'm saying yes to in life, you know, in the illness and the, just the breakups, the, whatever, all the different challenges over the years. Like, it's just like, yes, yes to that, because this is part of being alive in this form and the miraculousness of that, right? Like I'm alive and I'm aware of it, and conscious of that, and just it just it wakes me up to just that recognition of what an amazing opportunity, what a privilege, to be alive and in a body, experiencing life in its fullness, and welcoming all of it, all the learning and healing.
Oh, love it. It's so cool, right? You know, again, it's not fun always because life will bring you to your knees. I'm telling you, it's. I know. I really try to sell that idea, that notion, that it's great. It really is. It's all of what you're saying. When you really sit with it, you're like, man, actually, this is great. Damn, it sucks at the moment with this particular thing I don't like. But wow, I get to live and engage in this type of reflection. I get to connect with another and learn about myself, about them, and about myself in them. I get to learn to love. I see that love makes sense. It just makes sense to connect with another, to connect in general. I think love is just an extensive, a fancy way of saying deep connection, a resonant connection. And when I think about all of these different things, it makes life exciting, even when it's hard. You know, I'm not the most evolved person in the world, so I can't expect the other person to be the most evolved person in the world. Um, and so I might get upset with certain people's choices, but I see that potential in making those choices myself. I see what it's inspiring in me to be reflective. I can therefore love them. I can love it all. I can embrace it all. And I think in that process, it makes life worth living. It's the process, this evolving process that makes it all worth it. Even that it's not perfect. Perfect. It's just not. I think it's the nature of being in an embodied creature. You're gonna have a hard time sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is, and we get to explore with one another. We get to love each other, make loving connection with one another, and just do the best we can to bring our gifts and talents to the world by saying yes to finding our alignment, our purpose. Um, yeah, it's a fascinating life. I ain't gonna lie, I wish it was more pleasurable all the time. I do. I wish it was, it was a lot easier sometimes. I wish it was easier, but it's just not all the time. And when I think about the past when it wasn't easy, and now when I think, I'm like, yeah, I learned so much about myself. I'm glad I'm not that same person that I was then. But I had to go through that rough moment. Even now, I got all these skills. I've been doing all this practicing. I've learned all these various skill sets, and it's still hard sometimes.
Yes.
It's still like, damn, why this right now? Um, but you see how I'm laughing about it at the same time. I can be like, well, that sucks. I don't like how this feels, but oh well, I'm gonna just do what I can and work through it. I'm gonna go have a conversation with Deb. I haven't talked to her in 20 years, and she's gonna enlighten me with some way that she's saying something that's gonna be inspirational and it's gonna get me to be reflective and help me see things in a slightly different way. And then I feel a little bit better about myself. Huh? That's interesting. Now I can go and play with those ideas and play with how you put those things together, those phrases together, those metaphors together to speak about life. I think it just makes it all worth it to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I don't know. I mean, one thing I am just aware of, I turned 50 this year, and
Mm,
just kind of recognizing like I have enough years now and enough experiences of having watched myself go down into the depths, have life bring me to my knees, like, feel like I'm in that darkness and that sort of, yeah, sort of cauldron of getting cooked, and then finding my way back out. So like emerging from the womb, and sort of finding the next version of myself, that's emerged. And it's just like, I am so grateful for
right.
all of those times, as I look back, and yeah, because I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't, I wouldn't be able to live and connect and be attuned to the gifts that I'm here to bring. Just I wouldn't have the relationships in my life. I probably wouldn't be a mama, just like, it's just like all these things that needed to happen in my own evolution that were really, really hard at the time. And at times I felt stuck and confused and lost. And yeah, and it's like now there's I think this is part of the resilience too. It's like having gone through that so many times over the years and feel grateful in retrospect. When I hit those times, at this stage of my life, there's more of a embrace and surrender that is easier to access, to go through those experiences. And I say that knowing like, things are pretty good right now. I don't know when the next next thing's gonna happen, but I know it's gonna happen, right? Like
Right.
that's just life. There's gonna be something else. There's gonna be something else. And to trust in that being part of the healing and unfolding and my unique life path. Yeah.
And what we can do is try to enjoy the ride. I mean, joy doesn't have to mean pleasure.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. You can word it that way. I mean, you have to define your terms. Some people look at happiness as just pleasure. Um, Good luck with that one. If you think it's going to always be pleasurable, growth is painful. Painful. You think about a muscle. Just basic anatomy. If you want to grow a muscle, you have to break it down. You exhaust the muscle, break it down. You're sore the next day. You're like, ah, and you have to do all these things. Then you take a little break, and then now you have a much stronger muscle, and that stronger muscle, that bigger muscle, can handle a greater load, greater amount of stress, or at least that stress that you imposed on it, and it goes to resilience. And now it's a lot more resilient. It can handle something that comes up similar. And man, that's life. And if we don't challenge ourselves, we're atrophy. And I don't think we want that. I always tell folks, through teaching yoga and the physical aspect of yoga. I think it's all the meditative, all of it. It's You can use this analogy, but I like to think of the body as like a stress response mechanism, and you want to stress the body in an intelligent way to elicit a particular type of response that's going to be resilient. That's going to facilitate resilience. You can do that intentionally. I think that that's what things like various practices do. Meditative practice, some contemplative practices, or a physical exercise. You're stressing yourself in ways to elicit a healthy response that's going to facilitate resilience so that you can withstand anything that's similar that's going to come your way, because it's going to come. And the thing is how to be ready for it, how to be receptive to it, to be just receive, like, okay, it's here. Because if I overly resist, I'm going to really break down. I'm really going to cause some pain. How do I now take this? And I like the be it like liquid, take it. How do I allow it to be, but allow myself to fluid, like fluid, to just Um, like you throw a rock in water,
Mm.
the water doesn't necessarily break. It just surrounds it.
Mm.
It just surrounds the rock and like, okay, this is here. How do I just
Mm.
accept it? And how do I learn how to navigate my life with this being here? You put a boulder in a river and the water just going to run right around it. But if you block that river, that flow of the water, and that analogy breaks down because I have to bring too many other things into the analogy. But at any rate, I hope you get what I'm trying to say, folks. But yeah, I think what you've said is just, yeah, it's quite wonderful because, and this is why I've tried to interview people who are this year has been 40 and over. I've tried to interview people 50 and older in the beginning, even especially in the beginning, a lot of folks in their 60s, 70s, 80s. I love those conversations because, like you just said, the more time you have, the more you kind of like, okay, there's some patterns.
Mhm.
There are some things I cannot escape. I know when I was in my 20s, I thought I can. Well, you met me in my late 20s. I thought I can, like, pure. I didn't call myself a yogi at the time, but it was very like tapas, like this. Oh, tapas. I'm using these words and people may not know, but it's just like really, 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 really challenging myself so that I can be free of any kind of discomfort. Thinking if I can do certain things, I can become enlightened such that I never have to experience discomfort. I'm like, nah, I don't quite work that way. And that's why I love having these conversations with people who've had experience. They're like, you can have enlightenment, but enlightenment doesn't necessarily mean that all the discomfort is going to leave your life.
That
So
would be
yeah,
digressing.
right, exactly. Yeah, like, oh, I'm gonna push myself to the limit so I can just connect. You can't connect now. That's great, but that's good because you make magic happens in your life. You become crazy resilient. You have these amazing capacities, but discomfort is still gonna be there. Discomfort is still gonna come. It's not gonna completely go away, uh, and that's okay. And that's completely okay. That's why when I talk about suffering, I say unnecessary suffering. How do I mitigate unnecessary discomfort? You know, I'm not gonna just like go on a chair and just sit on a whole bunch of needles.
Mm.
Just I'm like, well, just move the needles out the chair. It's not necessary to put myself through that, right? It's a silly analogy, but it's something that can be reflected into our experience because a lot of times that's what we do. It's like, yeah, all these needles, I'm just going to sit right on it. And I'm like, why? We don't have to do that.
Mhm.
You're going to feel pain. Don't worry about it. It's going to come. You don't need those needles in your chair to feel pain. um, at any rate, this has been great, Deb.
Mhm.
This has been awesome. I love you still have your I love the way you think.
Mhm.
And folks, we've had quite a few conversations like this in the past. Um, at Bastille and that beautiful place up there in the Northwest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite something, just yeah, just to reflect back on who we both were then and all the life we've both lived since then. And
Hmm.
yeah, and just how we each have evolved.
Hmm. It's good to evolve, folks. Yeah, evolving is so great. I know y'all hear me saying these things are great. It is actually. I mean, I think about it. Just you have a conversation with someone you haven't had a conversation with in a long time. You can see the difference in yourself through the conversation, through the dialogue. I'm a little bit more mature. I got a long way to go, folks. Lifetimes. I love you, sister. I think you're you're very wise, and your patients, your clients, they're lucky to have you. It's happy. I'm good to hear. It's good to hear that you're still an evolutionary.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Any
So good.
final? Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so good to be with you, Broderick, and just to drop
Um,
into this space and conversation with you.
uh,
Yeah.
folks get to witness this experience. I want more of this kind of thing in this podcast. I've been saying I have such wonderful friends, or such. I still consider people friends. If I haven't seen you in 20 years, you're still my friend. I still think about you. I mean, I thought about you, and I was like, I gotta contact Deb. And it's just good to connect with folks and have them come here and let's just have this conversation. Again, I try to have conversations with folks where I mentioned this before the podcast, that you're not here just to sell your stuff, your book, or your system. I know I'm going to have those conversations, even if I try to avoid it, or try to be like, it's not just that. This is not the gist of this particular conversation. But it's great to have this kind of conversation where I'm not worried about that. You're not. I didn't take that you're trying to sell something
Mhm.
here, because this kind of conversation, to me, what I feel right now, I hope the audience can get a semblance of this feeling of, and I hope the audience is inspired by this conversation of, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm just exploring and having this interactive dialogue with you. And I've learned something in the process. I feel like I'm really present. I feel like we were locked in with each other and just open. We're not arguing, we're not debating, we're just exploring together creatively. And I hope that you feel that audience in the conversation. And I hope that you go and have this kind of conversation. You're gonna leave the conversation not necessarily having all your problems figured out, but you leave the conversation maybe have just a little bit a more expansive view of yourself and the various possibilities about your experience in the world, or possibilities of ways of looking at yourself in this world that we're living in. Um, yeah, I feel good, Deb. It feels good to see you again and talk with you. Um, any final words you like to? It's so much more to talk about. As I have other things, but I think that's that part I wanted to. You brought in connection, and we went from individual, and we got into the rest and connected with everything else. This whole web, and how a common theme for you is that's been in here is saying yes, alignment, and all these different things that are themes that are so important, being open, receptive, resilience, curiosity, having some self-compassion, some self-love, kindness towards oneself in this exploratory process, experimenting, throw away the playbook, try to minimize dogma and fundamentalism when we're doing this, and enjoy the ride. That's what that's at least some of it. I know there's a lot more that was brought to bear in this conversation, but those are some of those points that I want to highlight for the audience and for myself in this moment. Any final words that you would like to leave the audience with before we sign off?
Thanks for that summary. It was nice just to sort of float back through some of the threads of our conversation. And no, I think the nature of this kind of conversation is it could just keep on going. And yeah, I guess I'm aware, we spoke a lot about some of these bigger themes and ways of holding our lives without going into the details of our own journeys. And I always feel, a bit sensitive to that as I engage with a new audience, and just to because I know it's so connecting when we hear the personal stories too. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I just want to acknowledge, without going to the details of just like, as you were just saying, like, I'm still figuring it out. Like, this is, it's just, these are some of the ways that through my own journey of healing over the years and the times, as I was speaking to, where I've had to pause and sort of regroup and sort of find a new rebirthing and iteration of myself and my own journey, just that these are some of the ways that I found to talk about it and share about it and support others, and just because that's just been kind of a natural part of my journey that started in my early 20s when the chronic fatigue came on, of just finding that everything that I was learning for myself, I was wanting to share with others. And and I guess I just want to say, as you will, take what resonates and let go the rest. It's like we all have to find our own language and our own way of holding this mystery of life that we're living in, and again, honoring the uniqueness of each of us. And yeah, and I appreciate just being in these dialogues for that very reason, because we all have different perspectives and yeah, journeys that have informed how we live our lives and how we make meaning, and yeah, just um, what supports our unfolding. So I'm grateful to be here in this dialogue with you, and um, yeah, and hope to have more conversations like this moving forward.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, let's do it again. I
Mhm.
think I want to have more different types of conversation. I just want to have a guest on here the first time, at least just kind of unpack the bigger ideas and ideas, about this stuff. Sometimes I share some personal stuff. You share a little bit, but yeah, we can come back and dig into something specific and then really explore it. And it could be, sharing a life experience and the process of going through that, and how that process informed you and what you learned through that process. That's just a random example, just based on what you just said. That kind of stuff is so, like, you're right. It's powerful when one can share their story and their own experience through their pain points. And it can be quite educational for a listener, and healing, also for someone just to hear it. I'm not sure you probably heard, you've listened to someone unpack their experience, and you feel something inside of yourself heal, or you feel something inside of yourself, or at least that healing process initiates when you're listening to someone else's story. Awesome, Deb. Until next time, I really do look forward to having you either come back on the podcast, or just you and I just continuing our conversation. Hopefully, it won't be another 20 years.
Right. Thanks, Broderick.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.